Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, and Raw 30 was last night. And damn, do I have some thoughts on it. Some good, some bad, some in between. But it was certainly a jam-packed episode of Raw. But we're going to break it all down today, segment by segment. And I am joined today by Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
What's going on? I'm happy to be back. Definitely after a nice day off yesterday, just stoked to be here for this one. This is going to be a fun show. Absolutely.
Absolutely, it will be. And we're going to kick things off by getting into the segment which surprisingly kicked off the show. I thought it was going to be the main event, but it wasn't. And that was Sami Zayn facing Tribal Court. I mean, honestly, this was a fantastic segment, no doubt about it. Not a surprise to anybody that it was so good, but the crowd at times wasn't actually as good as I expected it to be for this segment, in all honesty. But for those of you guys who don't know what happened, Paul Heyman basically went on a rant about Sami Zayn, and he put together some footage of how he's been screwing over the bloodline, and then Roman Reigns tells Solo to basically take out Sami. Solo Sikoa is about to do it. Jey Uso blocks his arm and says, "No, I've got some proof that Sami is for the bloodline." And yeah, then Jey Uso showed the tapes, and Roman declared that Sami Zayn was innocent for now, and said that he didn't want to see Sami again until the Royal Rumble this Saturday. And this segment was great. It was executed fantastically. The fact that Jey is now on the side of Sami is just absolutely brilliant. And I was on the edge of my seat. But the one thing which I did have a little bit of an issue about, or not necessarily an issue, but it confused me a little bit, was why did Paul Heyman suddenly have an issue with Sami Zayn after the other day he was telling Roman to not kick him out of the bloodline? Now, I understand even in that promo with Paul the other day, Paul said that he didn't like Sami, but he said that it's better to have him, the exact quote was, it's better to have him inside the castle pissing out than outside the castle pissing in. And a few days later, he suddenly changed his tone, not just a little bit, but very significantly, and bringing up past footage. It did confuse me slightly, but what did you think, Clark?
I loved the segment so much, and I hear where you're coming from on that. And I think so. I actually watched the segment twice. Ironically, it was funny. I watched it once on Zoom with Kobe, and then I watched it again with my dad and my buddy Jack. And I think watching it twice was actually helpful for me. I totally hear where you're coming from on the quote from last week, and then the quick turn by Paul Heyman, right? But I will say this, they kind of had to have a prosecutor for this, and who better than Heyman in amongst that group? I don't know if they were going to bring someone else in. I was kind of shocked that there was no legends involved, but it is what it is. And I thought the segment was amazing. Heyman going after Sami, I think it's one of those, it's got to be another layer in the story where, right, he did say that last week, but at the same time, if push comes to shove, Paul's got to have his own back in this situation because he's about the only guy in the ring that can't fight, right? So he's got to cover his own butt, and if he, I guess that's the way I kind of justified it. I think the highlight of it was really the defense part of the trial, right? With the Jey scene and then the flip. Even the near Samoan spike, I thought was just genius from a camera perspective because of Sami's face. I even thought an underrated part of the segment was Sami's "I don't have a defense" promo. I think that was kind of brilliant and might have been overlooked. If you look at it, it was a long segment, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you look at it that way, you might overlook how great the mic work Sami did. These people know, and the huge pop, that was one of the biggest pops of the, I know you'd mentioned that the crowd wasn't quite as hot as we may have anticipated, but I did think that he got the big pop when he said that one. And then there's a couple of, when Jey grabbed the spike from Solo, that obviously garnered a big reaction. But but yeah, I really, really loved the segment, but the disconnect on from SmackDown to now, I'm with you on, is tough. I I really don't know what the plan is though, and I think that's what makes the storyline so exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. It's we don't know where this is going on. I really, really still hope that it's Mania it's going on. I really hope that I actually hope that Sami Zayn doesn't show up during the match at the Rumble, and Roman Reigns is just completely shocked that Sami doesn't help, but he also doesn't help Kevin. That's not where the turn is, and I think that Sami should win the Rumble, like I stated yesterday, and that is when I basically think the last night's segment set up perfectly for Sami winning the Rumble. Now, whether or not it'll happen is we'll have to wait and see. But that is personally what I would love to see, and I think that would make a lot of sense. But what I want to talk about now is, and I want to ask you this, Clark. Do you think that the Sami Zayn turn will happen at the Rumble, or do you think that it's gonna be a while longer? And how do you think that it's gonna happen?
So I find this interesting. Because personally, I think Sami Zayn is the highlight of the storyline, as great as Roman and the Bloodline are. Right now, to me, I'm not as interested in their actions outside of what's going on with Sami Zayn, right? And for him to not be there Friday, I found fascinating. I'm not sure we even get to the Rumble. We might see something Friday where he comes and helps the Usos, comes and helps somebody, uh, maybe steps in to break. Maybe Kevin Owens attacks the Bloodline once again, and Sami shows up and isn't supposed to be there. I think for me, given how great the storyline is, to out loud repeat twice, I don't want to see you until the Rumble. We're going to see Sami on Friday. I want to see Sami on Friday, I think, at this point now. And with kind of the division maybe helping the Usos would make sense. And see how that affects it maybe for a segment pre-match, pre-Rumble match at the Rumble, pre-Kevin and Reigns match or pre-Rumble match with Sami. I think that's where this should go, I guess, at this point, because not should go. I think Sami needs to be there on Friday. Let's put it that way. For me to even be interested in SmackDown and for the extension of the story, to leave him off of Friday night's show, I don't know why they would say that if he's not going to be there.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I'll say this though. To be honest, I don't think that SmackDown this Friday is an important enough show for enough people to tune in to witness the Sami turn. Which is why I wouldn't personally do it this Friday, because I don't think enough people will be watching, especially if this is going to be, a big match. Which is why
I don't think full turn, by the way, Ben. I was saying
okay.
Like he just shows up and helps the Usos. He's not supposed to be there.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying.
You see, sorry, I was
Yeah.
kind of convoluted on the take there because I was thinking it through at the same time as talking, which is never good. But yeah, my idea would be more of maybe the Usos are threatened and Sami shows up too, right? And they're put in a precarious position. Kevin Owens attacks one of them for some reason, or even someone else, and Sami is there to make the save, but he's not supposed to be there. He broke the rule. And then you can pay that off the very next night is kind of, I think we get one more appearance on Friday that goes against the I don't want to see you till Saturday. That was more the point I was trying to make.
Oh yeah. No, it would certainly be interesting that actually. I hadn't even thought about that. The fact that him disobeying a Roman to help the Usos or Solo would be very interesting. It would be certainly a unique way to do it. And numero one Superfly in the comments is asking, what if, regarding Kevin versus Roman, Roman beats Kevin so badly that it forces Sami to come out and get on his knees and have him show mercy on Kevin, angering Roman and kicking Sami out of the group? I mean, that's definitely one option. But I still think that Sami should actually turn on Roman before Roman turns on Sami. I think that'll make Sami really come out of his shell and just, not act like he's, beneath Roman. And I think that would set up then a big match between them, which is why I like the idea of Sami just not helping in the match and just winning the Royal Rumble. And he could even, I mean, And then you don't even that doesn't even have to necessarily be the turn him winning the Royal Rumble. You could wait, like Saul said yesterday, to Elimination Chamber to do the full turn. When Sami confirms, no, I am going to face you at a WrestleMania, you could wait until the Elimination Chamber and then do that in Canada, which would get a huge pop. But there's so many things you can do. And like you mentioned, Clark, the sky's the limit for this. And that what makes it so entertaining. And I'm really hoping that the dirt sheets don't spoil this, because I'm frustrated enough with the fact that something was almost spoiled last night by one of the dirt sheets. But thankfully now there's contradicting reports. Hopefully that's not true. But don't spoil stuff, guys. Come on now. But yeah, overall I love the segment. Clark, you love the segment too, right?
I thought it was amazing, and I even think it led further to. I don't necessarily want to see, and not to totally keep expounding upon the subject, but I don't necessarily want to see Sami and Kevin again pairing up. I think he's proven his loyalty to the bloodline thus far. I don't think there's a reason to re-tag Sami and Kevin. He hit him with a haluva kick and a low blow in War Games. We saw it. Like, he's at every turn when Kevin's tried to get in his head, he's denied the access. He's been loyal to the bloodline at every turn. I think the turn has to be Sami organically himself, not just teaming or anything, like standing on his own two legs. And that's the way I want to see it done. And I think my idea would be, I think we got to build towards a triple threat match at maybe Mania with Kevin, Sami, and Reigns. That I would love.
Wow. Oh, that would be sick. That truly would be. Oh, no, that would be brilliant. Now I want to see that. I don't know if it'll happen, because I think if they do give Sami the match at Mania, they'll want the crowd to be completely behind Sami.
I think so.
I feel if Kevin was there, it might be a little. I think most people would still be rooting for Sami, but I feel like there'd be some rooting for Kevin.
Split the crowd in a sense. I'm with you on that.
I think they'll really want a Daniel Bryan, a Kofi Kingston type moment if Sami is the one, and he deserves that. He really does deserve a WWE Championship run. And if you told me this time last year that Sami would ever hold the title, I'd be laughing at you. Not because of his skill or anything, just because he did, he wasn't booked like that. And I didn't ever see him getting
the conspiracy theorist.
Yeah,
I loved the shout out to that during that segment last night too. By the way, that was one of they mentioned the conspiracy multiple times. Really glad they did that. That was cool.
Yeah, here's something which is quite interesting. In university the other day, I was talking, I was referencing a wrestling T-shirt design or something, and it was one from the Sami Zayn conspiracy theorist era. One of his T-shirts he was wearing then. And one of my tutors, she used to be like a big wrestling fan, and basically, just the entire idea of the conspiracy gimmick that Sami Zayn had at that time, me explaining it to her, got her to lock up wrestling again. She was like, I'm going to have to watch this again now. Just from that, and it just shows, like, the Sami Zayn's gimmicks, they really do interest people.
It does. I really think he turned a corner, too, last year. If you remember the Intercontinental title, I mean, maybe further than last year. That might be a year and a half.
Pandemic, yeah.
The Intercontinental title run, but the ladder match he had with Styles and Jeff Hardy, that one was so, to me, that was like, okay. That was when I kind of was like, no, this guy, because he I don't want to say outshined Styles and Hardy, but he was the highlight of that match. I mean, he really was. And to do that with that level of talent in the ring in a ladder match with no fans was really impressive.
Oh, it absolutely was. But now it is time to move on to the next segment. And this segment, we're gonna go through the show in two different ways. Now, we covered the main segment, the Sami Zayn and Tribal Court, and now we're gonna cover firstly what I personally didn't like about Raw, and then the things that I thought were good. And Clark can jump in and give me his thoughts, and I'll pass it over to Clark and see if he disagrees or agrees with me. But of course, Raw kicked off. Actually, I said it kicked off with the Tribal Court. It didn't. It kicked off with Hulk Hogan coming out and delivering a promo. Apart from nobody could hear the promo. The mic was just not working. It was going in and out every other word. And it was awful. Now, obviously, sometimes sometimes in live production this happens. There's nothing you can do about it, and it's just the way it is. I'm not going to hammer on at them too much for that, but that started the show on a bit of a bad note, but it was redeemed quite quickly by Tribal Court. However, we then had a match which I really was not a fan of. And actually, that's a lie. I was a fan of the match. I just hated the ending. And that was the Usos versus Judgment Day. Since when can people just enter a match when somebody gets hurt? I mean, the Judgment Day, when the Judgment Day had it, it was ridiculous. But at least, like, it was, I guess it wasn't the free bird rule because it's a different thing. You can't change during the match. It was ridiculous then, and it was even more ridiculous this week. It really, really annoyed me. I mean, I guess it gets Sami Zayn over and back in the gut box with Roman Reigns a little bit. But I hate this rule. I don't know when they've suddenly changed it. And it really infuriates me as think about all the title changes over the years that wouldn't have been title changes if this existed then. It's an absolute joke. And I don't want this to be a regular thing now. But what do you think, Clark?
I definitely agree with you on it shouldn't be a regular thing, but I didn't have an issue with it. I thought it was fun. I really did. Sami was the highlight of the match before he was involved. And then as soon as he got involved, it was great. And him hitting the 1D and them hitting the pose and then him giving the belts back. I dug all of that. I agree with you. Not often. Please, not often. Definitely not more than you should. And like not all the time, right? But for where it was last night on the card, I had much bigger problems later in the show than I did with that match in particular because I thought it was exciting anyway. It was entertaining. I agree with you on it. It is on paper not a good look, but it took me to the second watch I didn't watch the whole match the second time, but till then to kind of be like, yeah, I know that was a bit convoluted and doesn't add up. But overall, I didn't have an issue with the result because the pops were there for Sami when he came in and the crowd chanting Usi and Sami Uso and all of that. The crowd involvement to me was enough that I don't think it landed on live television as well as it did in the arena, which I think is funny, ironically, because it's the opposite of the way the initial court segment went, right? It landed better on television than it did in the arena.
Yeah.
And so I would call those two a wash and arguably the highlights of the show anyway. I definitely have bigger complaints about things that happened later on the card than I did about that one. But I do hear where you're coming from.
I'm actually the ending to that was actually, I'm going to get into all my issues with the show, right? But this was actually my biggest issue. This was the part of the show which I disliked the most. Despite what I literally just said about the possibility of the Usos, the possibility of this not happening that much, I'm not wanting this to happen that much. I actually would prefer it to just be, okay, if that's the case, then if they're in a faction, it can happen at any point. Because even though that's ridiculous, at least it's consistent. This isn't consistent. It really, really annoyed me. But yeah, you're right. It did get a huge pop, and I got Sami over and continued the storyline. For the sake of the storyline, it made sense. But in the long term, from a logical standpoint, I just did not like it. But it was fun, so I'm not going to hold this against them.
Definitely, yeah. It was because I totally hear you on like it's one thing with the New Day, the Freebirds rule, all of that, right? That hasn't been the case. So that part didn't add up. And it was a bit telegraphed when we saw Adam Pearce run down and Sami standing right there. Come on. We knew it was coming, but the crowd chanting, everyone was into it, and the finish was fun. That was the key to me. If they'd have botched the rest of the match somehow or like real corny on the finish, no good. The finish was fun. It was. And Sami, that dive was impressive, by the way. That he hit right out of the gates. Really impressive dive. Not that he isn't always impressive, but that one was a good one.
Oh, absolutely. Sami, as always, was great. In fact, the actual in-ring action in this match was great. It was. And it was definitely the best match on the show. But, and I'm going to be honest, there wasn't much competition for that. But it was definitely the best match on the show. But what I want to get into next is actually something which has just been referenced in the comments by Numero One Superfly saying, do you think there might be too many promos on Raw because they had to cut off Becky versus Bayley? And that is my next point. They had to scrap Bayley versus Becky in the steel cage match, which we were excited for, which was heavily advertised, maybe even the most advertised match on the show. And yeah, they just scrapped it. They had to. They obviously did an angle where they took out Becky, damage control, but it was lame. There was other things in the show which they could have taken out, such as Sonya Deville versus Bianca Belair. That entire segment, I don't understand what the point was, apart from Ric Flair to introduce Charlotte. They could have done that without the match. Sonya Deville still hasn't won a singles match since 2020, and that yet she's lost so many of them. Yet she has a title shot at the Royal Rumble. That infuriates me too. It makes no sense. The fact that Bayley versus Becky was scrapped, it really frustrates me a lot. I think they could have shuffled things around and found time for the match. But what do you think, Clark?
I can't understand why you would scrap the advertised logical main event for a match that hadn't been. Both Sonya and Bianca deserve better, let alone Bayley and Becky for that, right? Like Sonya should have won a singles match since 2020. She's an awesome in-ring talent. She's a legitimate physical threat. We know about her MMA background. She has a cool offensive moveset. She's great on the microphone. How has she not won a singles match since 2020? Come on. That's not right. I'm not going to knock Sonya for that. That's not her fault either, because she's looked good in singles matches since 2020. We've seen them. And on top of that, then you have her challenging Belair, which on paper is really cool. Can we please get a build for Sonya before that? But if we're going to advertise a steel cage match between Becky and Bayley, why is it opening the third hour and not the main event? I understand it cutting for time and the beatdown, maybe. This might be the most damage that Damage Control's controlled, not to go back to my old catchphrase here, but I'll give them credit there. At least they finally beat someone down and look like a serious team threat. But it was so clearly not the way it was intended. It took away from that part of it anyway. And for entertainment value, okay. So Bayley looks stronger, and so does Damage Control as a whole. Becky got beat down. What does this mean for the Rumble? We didn't build towards anything other than maybe the encounter inside of the Rumble match, I would say, in that one. And then on the other side, we really going to get Sonya and Bianca, I guess, and Sonya on a defeated streak? I don't know, man. It's tough to quantify.
It is really bad. The fact that Sonya's getting a title shot when she's not won a match since 2020, and of course, there's obviously no knock on Sonya because it's not her decision. But the booking for her has been absolutely dreadful, and this is the worst booking since Triple H's. The fact that she's getting a title shot is the worst booking since Triple H has come into power. It really does not feel like his booking in NXT when it comes to stuff like that. He was always a lot more, take over title shots. He'd build them up for ages, so that was quite frustrating. But it is, at the end of the day, what it is. And honestly, those were my main concerns with this entire show. So when you break it down, it's not that many, but Usos versus Judgment Day ending, and Hulk Hogan's obviously opening promo, which they couldn't do much about. And then the entire Bayley, Becky being scrapped, and Sonya versus Bianca Belair. Not even the match itself, even though that was short and nothing special, but it's just completely pointless segment. Just another loss for Sonya, who doesn't need any more losses. Charlotte versus Sonya at the Royal Rumble now feels even less important. I don't understand it. I cannot get my head around it, no matter how many times I even think about it. But one thing which was good about the show I actually thought the amount of legend cameo appearances that came back, and of course the poker game backstage, that was a lot of fun. I mean, I know now that I know it's Baron Corbin's gimmick, but they do seem to have a bit of an obsession with poker games recently. Maybe that's a sponsorship WWE are trying to get. Who knows? But yeah, that was fun.
I love to see him go through the old APA door. That tickled me. I love that spot. And then love Ron Simmons. He's gold and was great the whole time. And I loved, though, that they didn't just have the classic APA card game where it was one table. They had multiple tables set up. Like, they've evolved over the years.
Yeah.
Like, there's been card games. To me, I was kind of giggling like, oh yeah, like there's just been, now they have 3 tables or whatever, right? Like, it's evolved over the years since the 90s when they were showing that backstage. That cracked me up, the way they kind of like filmed it like that. And even the initial, the only thing I think we missed was I wanted a damn early from Ron Simmons when he handed him the cash. I really wanted a damn, but it is what it is.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it was very fun. I do like these backstage segments they do during these Legends nights and stuff. And Numero One Superfly is asking in the comments about the Bella twins comments. We will get to those at the end of the show. But yes, so the next thing I want to talk about, out of all these legend appearances, of course, we had DX and Kurt Angle leading to Imperium versus Seth Rollins and Street Profits, which I thought was a bit weird and a bit unnecessary. But the DX segment was great, and Imperium interrupting it. I like that too, but Imperium losing to Seth Rollins and Street Profits, I wasn't a fan of that. But it's whatever, right? It's Raw 30. The faces have got to win. But anyway, the One Legend segment, which I loved, was when LA Knight came down to the ring to cut a promo on Bray Wyatt, and he was not happy. He was going off on him again and said, look, he's going to come out here now, whatever. He did not come out. It went dark. The chimes hit, and everybody knew what was coming. The Undertaker. And out comes Taker, but he's the American badass. And yeah, this was great. He comes down to the ring before Bray Wyatt then does follow. And at this point, Undertaker, instead of taking out LA Knight on his own, passes him to Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt hits Sister Abigail on LA Knight. And then Undertaker basically passed the torch to Bray Wyatt. And that was a really fun, absolute brilliant moment. The photo of them together with Undertaker whispering something in his ear, that is going to go down for years and was absolutely top-notch stuff. But, LA Knight really isn't coming out of this feud looking stronger, but it's whatever at this point. I loved the segment. But what did you think, Clark?
So to your point about LA Knight, I'll start with that first. I actually think I agree with you that he's not looking stronger, but I don't know if anyone is as equipped to handle. I mean, the way he exited the ring when Taker came down on the bike and was in the ring, and then kind of got pinched between him and Bray when Bray made his entrance, and the body language and the selling without even before the physicality was so brilliant. LA Knight deserves some credit here.
Absolutely.
And we've been talking about like why, maybe that's why, is because he's capable of standing on the other side and connecting all those dots. Bray was amazing in this segment. I think the way with the lantern behind and everything. I thought I loved the nuance that Taker's the gong hit, and then he came out in a different gimmick, and the parallel to Wyatt currently and recently always basically working multiple gimmicks. And the fact that they hit the dead man music, the dead man gong, and then you got American Badass, and it was the American Badass that gave him the whispering in his ear and the passing of the torch. I thought it was so cool. I really, really loved that. That tickled every bit of my wrestling fan, childhood nostalgia. Like I loved it. I thought they almost couldn't have done better. But I do think LA Knight deserves more credit than he's getting. Now, how it benefits him in the future, I do not know. But I'm at least like, we got to recognize how hard it is to stand on the other side of this and how good of a job he's doing.
Of course, yeah, LA Knight has been fantastic. He's been great sport about all this because he's not going to come out of it looking any better. But again, his age, a few other factors, it's going to get him more well known. Actually, that he will actually come out of it slightly better off in terms of more people will know who he is. That is true, and his performances have been absolutely phenomenal. And let's just hope this pitch black match at the Rumble is as good as we hope it will be. But with these cinematic type matches, you never quite know, especially if it really will be pitch black. How will the crowd react to that? There's a lot to think about, and it probably will be hard for them to get it right, but let's hope they do. Now, moving on to the main event of Raw 30, it was Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley in a no disqualifications match. And there was quite a few different predictions about this from different people, but I don't actually think anybody predicted, or maybe they did, but not that I saw, predicted what actually happened. Everybody had this theory that the Hurt Business would get involved or something like that. That's what I thought would happen, one way or the other. But no, Austin Theory and Lashley have an okay match, nothing too special. And Lashley puts Theory through a table, pretty much has him beat before Brock Lesnar makes his WWE return after a few months away from the company. And once again, he is coming back for Bobby Lashley. Their feud is not over yet, and I'm not mad about it, honestly, especially after the last match ended. And yeah, they come out. Lesnar comes out and puts Lashley through a table, and then puts Theory on top of Lashley. And Theory is still the United States champion. Now, Brock Lesnar helping Austin Theory is not something I ever thought I'd say, but it makes sense. And honestly, I'm completely down to see Lashley versus Lesnar one last time. Hopefully at WrestleMania, I'm down with that. But what do you think, Clark?
So I loved it, and I love Brock Lesnar. And the only thing that I thought of, and I was like, dang, there's such an opportunity here with the Hurt Business, the rumblings about reforming, right? We saw him in the background on Raw meeting together, and MVP's kind of giving us, there's rumblings about the return of the Hurt Business. Let's not forget that Shelton Benjamin was Brock Lesnar's college roommate. And there's a story to be told there. Maybe a tag match along the way to Mania to get Lesnar some in-ring work. Maybe Shelton turns on the business. Omos replaces him there. Maybe you end up with a Shelton and Brock versus Bobby and take your pick from the Hurt Business along the way. That could be fun. And there's something to be told there. I don't know necessarily that they'll go that route, but we at this point now all know about their history, and we saw with Team Angle Shelton go against Brock way back in the day. It'd be really cool, I think, to see them get to tag together one time, and that was something I kind of thought of with the involvement with the Hurt Business. As far as him helping Austin Theory, I mean, heck, he probably owed him one. He threw him off the top of a elimination chamber, right? I mean, off the pod. I guess he owed Theory one on that one, and it's not like he helped him. Like, it's not like he was really helpful. He was pretty Brocky about the help, It was fundamentally help, but it wasn't that helpful. I don't know how he plays into this. I don't know that the U.S. title needs to be involved in a Brock and Bobby Lashley feud, but I really am interested to see, especially because, Shelton's been such a long time talent. Like his Money in the Bank highlights, the super kick he took from Shawn, that was, such a big part of the Raw intro for years. And how much he's dedicated to the sport. It'd be cool to see him with his old college buddy Brock paired together. And I kind of thought of that, like, why would he be in the Hurt Business? We know Brock's his guy. And that, Brock's never had like a numbers game type thing, but that's just something I think along the way to Mania, because at the end of the day, you're right. The singles match, Brock and Bobby 3 is the one, right, to do. And I don't even think there needs to be a title involved or anything like that. But I think Shelton might be the key cog to get you there, storytelling wise. What do you think about that?
I think the fact that you brought Shelton Benjamin into that, I absolutely love it. I completely actually forgot about the history between him and Lesnar, and that definitely could be an interesting dynamic and something which I'm certainly down to see how it could play out. Maybe in fact they just have a match against each other beforehand. I feel like that could be interesting as well. There's a lot you could do But if they do go down this route of the Hurt Business versus Bobby versus Brock Lesnar, then of course you've got to involve Shelton Benjamin in some way because of the history between the two. They can't just ignore that. So great point there, Clark. But would you prefer to see some Lesnar face somebody else at Mania, or do you think that Lashley was 100% the right choice for Mania?
To be totally honest, I love the idea of Lesnar Lashley. I have no problem with it. I think Lesnar's kind of hard to book right now with Roman carrying both belts, because if he's not chasing the world title, what other story does he? What other reason does he have? Like the way that Brock operates, it's basically history or titles, seemingly, right? Over time,
Yeah.
there's the streak or the belt. There's the, he's consistently, Brock doesn't necessarily have rivalries. Now, the Bobby thing's unique, I think, because even though it's not officially over, there's that, can he match me physically? There's that layer of the extra challenge that I don't think it needs the United States title. And it's almost the only one in my eyes you could basically book, unless he was trying to go, I'm still bitter about Seth Rollins calling himself the Beast Slayer. That'd be the only other thing I could think of. But I think Seth is pretty tied up with his own stuff right now, and they told that story a while ago. And so Bobby, I think, is kind of the only choice. That's where, with Brock not chasing a belt, right? At least as of right now, I don't actually picture him as a United States title chaser this second, unless maybe. But the best story you can tell is that Bobby Lashley can get him, and then if the Hurt Business thing happens, it's Brock versus the Hurt Business. I think that's the best. It gives Brock a reason, and you can still let him play this babyface that's been so electric. But unless he's going to turn heel, I don't see anything else on the docket outside of chasing the title that makes sense. And he's chased that dang title with Roman Reigns for I think that's been played out.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen that too many times. Honestly, I'd be happy if we never saw it, Reigns versus Lesnar again. But yeah, I agree. I think Lashley versus Lesnar is the only one which makes sense, and I'm excited to see it one more time as well. Absolutely. And now we're going to get on to the question, which quite a few people have been asking about. Soul in the comments here saying, all right, lads, many fans have expressed their thoughts on female legends such as Lita, Trish, and the Bellas not getting a segment on Raw 30. Numero one, Superfly also asked it, saying, what are your thoughts regarding the Bella Twins' comments regarding Raw? And for those of you guys who don't know what the Bella Twins said, they basically went, I'm not actually sure if it was Instagram Live, they went on live somewhere, and they basically said that they were invited to Raw, but then they didn't, once they accepted it, there was no follow-up, and nothing eventually happened, even though they were originally advertised. And yeah, the Bella Twins are not too happy about it, and made out that one of the reasons why was because Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks, being in a lot of their promo packages, so they couldn't show a lot of it. And I honestly think that is completely rubbish. They showed a Jericho, they showed Bryan. I don't for 1 second believe that.
Ambrose.
Yeah, exactly. I don't for 1 second believe that that is true in any way, shape, or form. But also, that's a complete lie that most of their moments included Sasha Banks. They didn't. I don't know what on earth that is. Now, why they weren't on the show, I don't know. I honestly have argued Lita and Trish should have been there more, but should people have been on the show? Yes. And I don't know why they were not. I'm going to have to wait and see. But the Bella's comments were ridiculous, quite frankly. It was nothing to do with Mercedes Moné. Completely, just trying to cause chaos, I guess. But they should have been more women on the show, undoubtedly. Especially when you had that ridiculous segment with Sonya and Bianca, which I'll keep going back to because, come on, Sonya hasn't won a match since 2020, and she's now getting a title shot. It's ridiculous. But yeah, what did you think of the entire thing, Clark? What do you think about their comments?
I mean, I hear where a lot of people are coming from on maybe like a women's legends appearance at all would be great. The Bella's comments didn't move me much. It didn't sound like they were backstage. I mean, if they were invited, wouldn't they have shown up?
Apparently, there was
And
no
then like the
follow-up,
no
which is
follow
why
up
they couldn't go.
themes. I mean, I don't know. That seemed for a company like WWE to invite and not follow up. I don't know. Maybe the non follow up was in regards to being booked. And look, we're on the road to WrestleMania and the Rumble. And in past years on these type of shows, we've complained about it being dominated by legends and not enough current talent being put over. I think I understand having your feelings hurt as a talent or a performer. And if the Bellas thought they should have been there or wanted to be on the show, I get that. And if they felt scorned by that, that's not cool. But at the same time,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I get that, and I mean, I guess honestly, they should have been involved in the poker game, or somebody, in some way, shape, or form. Some legend should have, some women's legend should have been involved in the poker game. I do understand that because they should have been women's legends.
yeah.
That is a fact. They should have been, but the Bella Twins comments are ridiculous. It was nothing to do with Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks. I still can't get used to the Money theme song. I absolutely hate it, and I will not shut up about it until she has a new theme. But
Come on, Snoop, make her a new theme.
yeah,
We need
exactly.
Snoop Dogg.
Let's give Snoop Dogg a call.
Yeah.
Let's get all
Hashtag
our
Snoop Dogg new
our
Mercedes theme.
yes,
Get
absolutely.
that going.
And we have Belle in the comments here saying, honestly, I'm holding my opinion on the Bella Twins comments till Sunday, only because I don't put it past either of them to show up on the Rumble on Saturday.
That is a
And yeah,
great point by Bell. I didn't think of that even myself, Bell, by the way. Thank you. That is a great yes, like because if they both show up on the Rumble on Saturday, then that explains a lot.
well,
And
it does, but the reason I wouldn't like that, I'd actually be annoyed if they now show up on Saturday, purely because they on social media bash WWE and
yeah,
getting them a lot of hate and claimed that the Mercedes Moné thing, which is again, like I said, a load of rubbish. Jericho was highlighted tons on the show, so was Bryan Danielson, so was Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose. It's a load of rubbish. There was tons of former stars on the show. But Jericho had quite a few seconds on. The Daniel Bryan thing was quite quick.
I mean, they showed the whole replay of his debut with the countdown
Yeah.
clock. Like that was stunning to me. That was really cool because that's one of my favorite Raw moments
Oh,
personally.
absolutely.
But like I thought that was incredible. Yeah, to be honest, with a lot of the tribute stuff, I think they did a great job. And a lot of times they've overdone the send a legend to the ring with a mic. I'm with you on the put them in the poker game, maybe, right? Or something like backstage segment, but there's so much. The Taker segment was absolutely worthy. The DX segment was absolutely worthy. Maybe a Trish or Alita in the ring at most to add to one of the women's matches would have been great, but they overdo the legends on those type of shows too often. And I think it was just kind of a glaring thing after the Bella Twins pointed out what they did with their comments that there weren't women on the card. I would say I'd be more focused on that as an issue, the women's legends not being there, than what the Bella Twins said specifically.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The comments it was just ridiculous comments from them. Especially once again the Mercedes Moné thing. But we're getting close to the end of today's episode, guys. It's been a good one. It's Tuesday, 24th of January, 2023. I'm still almost saying 2022 every time I say it.
It's weird.
I'm struggling to get used to it, but somehow it's 2023 and we will be back tomorrow. Me and Clark will actually both be back tomorrow.
We will.
There's gonna be another two-man show, and we'll be talking perhaps a bit more about Raw 30. Who knows? Some news stories which are going around. But give us a follow on the Instagram story every day. We update you guys with what time we'll be live. It's usually most of the week, apart from Thursdays. It's usually 8 p.m. GMT, 12 p.m. Pacific. And what's that Hawaiian time, Clark?
9 a.m. Hawaiian.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We've had quite a few viewers today. Thank you. And also thank you to every single person in the comments who's left a comment. It really helps us out. And also, please leave us a like because those help us in the algorithm massively as well. But until tomorrow, guys, thank you, and we'll see you next time.